most of the elders have to deal with very different anxieties from what an adult population deals with. Anxieties in an elderly population are commonly related to illness, their health, their fear of being a burden on their families, their fear of whether their resources would be sufficient to to last as long as they live, whether they will be able to pay for all the medical care that they might encounter along the years. And a lot of other anxieties, like they're not able to cope with the banking because of the new age, the internet facilities. A lot of them are not aware of how to use these facilities, and they feel unable to be independent because they have to rely on someone else to help them, and that causes a lot of anxiety. Be it even simple things like booking railway tickets, which now are mostly done online, and so they find it difficult that they have to rely on somebody else for activities they could previously do on their own. So these are some of the common anxieties that an elderly person experiences, which are probably related to an aspect of age, because these are not concerns that a young population would have. And of course there would be common anxieties, but these are certainly specific to an older population. The commonest illnesses that we see in a geriatric population, mental health illnesses that we see in a geriatric population, are depression, dementia, and then anxiety. So it is important that we distinguish between the three, because the line of management would differ depending upon what the primary diagnosis is. So if we have to look at what's the distinction between a depression and anxiety, although there will be a lot of symptoms of depression in a pure anxiety disorder as well, the primary distinction would be this, that the worry would be the predominant symptom in an anxiety disorder as opposed to a low mood, and not always associated with the negative symptoms we see in a depressive disorder of hopelessness and helplessness, decreased self-worth. Here in an anxiety disorder, it would be predominantly that I'm worried about either a health issue or, as I said earlier, becoming a burden on their family members. So that's how we would be able to distinguish between the two. This is very important, and we'll take the history that we go into extreme details about this life circumstances, the social situation, their support systems, which would also give us pointers in being able to distinguish between the two. The other condition that we commonly see where we also find a lot of anxiety is, of course, dementia. In dementia, the anxiety that we see is more around the person being unable to know what is happening next, to be able, because they're not able to take into account their surroundings and be able to understand what's the next thing that they're supposed to do. So there's a lot of anxiety around what do I do next, and restlessness associated with it, because there is no structure in their mind, and they're looking for structure elsewhere in the environment. So again, the predominant complaint in someone with dementia would be a memory loss. That would come first. They might be anxious about their memory loss, but the underlying cause would be a memory loss, and that's how we'd be able to distinguish if it is a dementia or it is a pure anxiety disorder. How prevalent it is in India? It's probably because a lot of anxiety conditions are still not diagnosed. People are not coming to seek help with a purely anxiety disorder. We don't really have an actual accurate estimate of how prevalent it is in the community. But going by a few studies in the recent years which have been published in India, and studies done in India, we probably put an estimate of about 10% of illness population in the elderly would suffer an anxiety disorder. And I think that would be comparable to what we see in the West as well, where it would again be in the range of about 15 to 20% in a community sample. So yes, it is way higher than a dementia or a depressive disorder in an elderly population. So it does require the attention, in order for us to diagnose this, in order for medical health professionals to be able to be aware that conditions like this exist and be able to give the person the appropriate help and treatment. So there's a very close association between sleep and anxiety. Often we think that it is the anxiety disorders which cause lack of sleep, Or it could also be the other way around, where a purely sleep problem like a chronic insomnia can cause an anxiety disorder. So if we look at the former, where it's an anxiety causing inadequate sleep or difficulty in sleeping, it could be because, typically in a household, as the day comes to an end, the levels of noise come down, people start retiring typically into their rooms. And if you have an elderly person who is now, all the stimulation from the daytime has now stopped and they are left to their own worries, the anxiety starts to kick in and they start worrying about, what if they can't sleep through the night? What if something happens to them in their sleep? What if, the lights are switched off and somebody comes into the house? There are a whole lot of fears that they carry with them while they're going to bed, and this often causes problems in going off to sleep. Whereas in the daytime, you'd have the family members saying that they sleep quite well or they nod off wherever they get a chance, but nights they don't sleep. They'll be pottering about the house, trying to look into the kitchen, making something for themselves to eat or drink. So it becomes a problem for the family who feel that sleep is an issue, but in fact what's happening is that they feel more secure during the daytime and would happily nod off or catch a few hours of sleep in the day, and that makes up for the sleep in the 24 hours, so they're unable to sleep at night. On the other hand, you also have, a primarily chronic insomnia, which could be because of a bodily symptom like a pain, a back pain or a leg pain, which could cause lack of sleep or difficulty in falling asleep. And night after night, when the sleep cycle is reversed or it's completely thrown off course, the person starts to experience the other symptoms of anxiety as well. So this is a condition where a primarily sleep problem has led to an anxiety situation, with all the other symptoms, where each time they worry about the night coming and another night of not being able to sleep, the anxiety starts to pick up and they start experiencing that restlessness and fidgetiness and sometimes even a shortness of breath. And so some of them even experience a panic disorder, worrying about going off to sleep again.